Wildfire and monsoon, two of the polar opposites of New Mexico weather. One brings critical moisture. Life-giving water is so important in a desert ecosystem, but it comes with risks, including flash flooding and lightning. And right now, New Mexico's drought makes the resource even more scarce. Wildfire season now extending across the year, bringing its own risks to life, livelihood, and property. But fire can also be beneficial to the land it touches, clearing invasive plants and nourishing the soil. As we reach the midpoint between these two opposing seasons, our team of meteorologists take you on an in-depth look at the benefits and the growing risk of weather extremes in the land of enchantment.
Spring is New Mexico's traditional fire season, and this year has been especially bad. Meteorologist Eric Green investigates the ingredients that create the dangerous situation and discusses our way out.
In just 5 months, New Mexico's drought conditions took a major turn for the worse. 2021 ended with just 21% of the state in extreme drought, 0% exceptional. By June 1st, 90% of the state is extreme and 46% at the top of the scale exceptional, the fourth highest level of exceptional drought in the last 22 years. Fire activity in acres burned in the country was 112% above the 10-year average through the end of May, more than double recent averages. And much of the Southwest and New Mexico will have above-average fire potential through the end of June, enhanced by dry lightning potential. The evidence of last year's monsoon season and those wet storms early last winter are right here on the ground below us. Fire forecasters are calling this abundance of fire fuels, record or near record high levels, and the moisture levels in these fuels is at record to near record low levels. Heavier fuels also become more abundant in June as the growing season takes off, and it's really hard to count on any relief until widespread monsoon storms arrive. On windy and unstable red flag warning days, a fire's ability to grow and spread is so high they are almost uncontrollable. Flames can shoot to around 100 feet in the air, something we saw in videos in the Hermit's Peak Calf Canyon fire. And new research from the University of Washington suggests that nighttime air in the western U.S. has become at least 50% drier in the last 40 years. So the amount of hours in a day where fire behavior is extreme starts earlier in the morning and lasts much longer into the night. Evidence of this has been on display right here in New Mexico this year. These photos showing the Jemez Mountains glowing well into the night with flames from the Cerro Pelado fire as seen from Rio Rancho. The dry conditions are putting incredible stress on our native trees, making them more susceptible to attack by bugs.
Yeah, a report by the state shows certain bugs are responsible for killing nearly 2 million acres of trees over the last decade. Stella Sun takes us to Santa Fe to show us the impacts.
On the foothills of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, a forest of trees.
The pinon trees are getting to the point where they're drought stressed enough to where we might have another mass die-off event.
Dr. John Formby, the state forest health specialist, spends many days studying the forests. He says the statewide drought is dehydrating many of our trees, like our beloved state tree, the pinon. When pinons are drought stressed, it makes them more vulnerable to attack by bark beetles.
So what I'm doing here is chipping away the bark at this recently attacked tree, bark beetle attacked tree.
Healthy pinon trees produce sap, which pushes bark beetles out, stopping them from killing the tree. But when pinons are drought stressed, it may not produce enough sap to fend off the bug. The New Mexico Forestry Division finds about 90% of trees that die off each year in the state is from bark beetles.
Once a tree is attacked by bark beetles, then it's doomed. There's nothing you can do to save it at that point.
Over the last decade, 1.9 million acres of trees killed. Even from the City of Santa Fe open space trailhead, you can already tell that this pinon tree is starting to be attacked by bark beetles. One indicator, dying pine needles. The National Weather Service predicts drought conditions will continue well into the year. As a result, Dr. Formby says the continued drought, coupled with other factors, may set the stage for even more pinon trees to die off in the next 1 to 3 years.
The bark beetles are native to New Mexico, and they can play a positive role in our ecosystem. Experts say because they can kill unhealthy trees, those unhealthy trees can be replaced with more drought-resistant ones. But we all know how important pinon trees are to our state. Losing those would be devastating.
Another fire risk? Power lines. It's just one of the many human causes of wildfire. Now, in New Mexico, those are tracked separately, but we do know there are some wildfires that were sparked by a power line. The 2011 Los Conchas fire was started by a tree falling on power lines. A jury found 2 power companies responsible for the state's 4th largest fire because they didn't do enough to prevent it. The fire started when an aspen fell onto the lines in the Jemez Mountains. Other dangers from power lines include plants and trees contacting the lines, conductor slap, where the lines touch each other due to wind or other factors dropping sparks, and failed equipment like switches and transformers sparking fires. The cause of the 6,000-acre McBride fire earlier this year is still officially under investigation. A lawsuit now working through the courts blames PNM and its contractors for failing to trim trees and dry vegetation near the power lines. PNM says they will work with all parties in this litigation.
Prescribed burns are designed to help manage forest growth. They are used in areas where there's a risk of natural or man-made fires getting out of hand.
Fire has a role. It shapes the forest, it selects plants, releases seeds, and recycles nutrients. It does a lot of things.
While there are a number of checks designed to make prescribed burns safe, sometimes they get out of hand. 2 of New Mexico's largest fires, the Cerro Grande fire in 2000 and the Hermit's Peak fire this year, both started as controlled burns. Lawmakers are now calling for stricter guidelines for what conditions should look like when prescribed burns are used.
We have been seeing wildfire season last longer in most parts of the U.S. What was once a 4-month fire season now lasts 6 to 8 months. This is because the winter snow is melting early and rain coming later in the season, along with an extreme drought fueling fires in the southwest part of the U.S.
There's a lot of evidence that the fires that do burn these days are more intense. And it's important, I think, to separate out the question of how many fires burn and how intense are the fires. It's pretty common to have years with more than 50,000 wildfires over the course of a year. 50,000, that sounds like a lot. And clearly we don't hear about most of them because most of them are very small. Less than 5% of the wildfires contribute to about 95% of the acres that are burned.
Experts are also noting the snowpacks in the southwest are melting quicker, but they're also noticing them melting slower in the northern U.S. Overall, the drought is affecting nearly 90% of the western U.S. and continues to intensify.
When wildfires are burning, many brave women and men risk their lives to save the land and the lives of those in danger. But as Action 7 News reporter John Cardinale discovered, many of the people fighting the fires in our state aren't even from New Mexico.
It's a tiresome job.
Our shift starts at about 6 in the morning. You wake up, you go to an operational briefing in camp, and then you drive out here as soon as you can. So they're out here about 14 to 16 hours a day.
That requires physical and mental strength.
For many of those crews, that just means a lot of hiking and walking up these hills in rugged terrain. So they have to come in shape.
They're the firefighters who battle New Mexico's wildfires. When fires first start, local departments respond. But once fires in our state get out of hand, other crews are called to action.
The incident management team comes in with a lot of resources to be able to handle the fire as it's grown.
Mike McMillan is a part of the team. He is a task force leader with the Southwest Area Incident Management Team 2. The team helps mitigate wildfires in Arizona, New Mexico, and part of Texas.
They bring a lot of resources with them from finance, logistics, operations, planning, all the food, everything that firefighters need to survive and thrive here.
But when wildfires strike, the incident management team does not come to New Mexico alone.
On the ground, you have the hotshot crews. Those are federal hotshot crews, 20 to 25 person hotshot crews, tough as nails, billy goats in the mountain.
The Southwest Hotshot Crew serves New Mexico. The team travels from Arizona, and they carry a reputation.
It's the best firefighters in the business, really, when it comes to what we do out here.
Then there are Type 6 engine crews. They also travel from surrounding states.
They look like glorified pickup trucks. They have great access into narrow roads.
All different crews playing a pivotal role in keeping the land and people safe.
Wildland firefighting is not a high-paying job, and from my experience, it's extremely rewarding to go to an incident and have an impact on it, to put it out, to save values at risk.
The incident management team travels with hundreds of personnel to fires. For example, during the McBride fire, more than 400 members of the team responded.
Both the state of New Mexico and the city of Albuquerque will issue advisories when smoke is in the air. In Albuquerque, a health alert is issued for smoke and blowing dust. These usually apply only to the city and county based on things like pollutant levels, weather patterns, and air movement. Statewide, health alerts rely on the 531 visibility method. During fires, if the visibility is at 5 miles, those with asthma, lung, or heart disease should limit time outdoors. At 3 miles, they should stay inside, and at 1 mile, everyone should stay indoors.
The fire risk continues to grow in the land of enchantment. Since 1970, the Natural Resources Defense Council reports New Mexico has warmed 3.3 degrees since 1970. That increase, coupled with the drought, means the state will likely face 30 or more days of high fire risk by 2030. Right now, populated areas in New Mexico have a greater wildfire likelihood, more than 70% higher than other states. According to data from the U.S. Forest Service, in the last 22 years, there have been more than 1,000 wildfires in New Mexico. Of those, 52% had natural causes, like lightning, but more than 30% have been human causes. One of the latest wildfires, the combined Calf Canyon and Hermit's Peak fire, both triggered by controlled burns. Now, the Forest Service is pausing the practice and reviewing their policies, a move that caught the attention of the state's lawmakers.
We have to be more cautious given the extreme droughts and the winds. The winds are different here now about how we do prescribed burns and when.
This is a year-round problem now. We have droughts, the ground is dry, the trees are dry. It's creating havoc, and there's a lot of fuel out there.
The best way to prevent fire where you live is to prepare your property. Next on 7, changing monsoon patterns, how New Mexico's rainy season is changing and what that means where you live. Plus,
how does the lightning decide where to strike? Pretty basic, pretty complicated.
Understanding how lightning works, the research happening now in the land of enchantment, and restoring the land after the fire, preparing for the dangers from New Mexico's weather extremes. New Mexico is getting hotter and drier, but just like the generations before us, we look forward to a wetter period during our summer monsoon season. The term monsoon generally refers to a seasonal change in atmospheric winds. Here in New Mexico, it signals the winding down of the drier westerly wind flow and the onset of the more southerly winds that usher in more humid air which can tap moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, and the Pacific. The result? Much needed rain. Statewide, about half of New Mexico's annual precipitation is the result of our monsoon season. But because of our changing climate, the summer monsoon pattern is changing, and not in a good way. In generations past, the traditional monsoon pattern was a south to north flow of moisture, delivering a surge of showers and thunderstorms. This is called a monsoon burst of moisture. When this flow of moisture would shift away from us, it would be a drier pattern called a monsoon break. What made for a plentiful monsoon season? It was basically a matter of having more monsoon bursts of moisture rather than the drier monsoon breaks. But getting monsoon moisture into New Mexico now is a lot more complex. For instance, when the traditional south to north monsoon pattern sets up, there is moisture that wraps around a high pressure system to our east. But often what we see now is the high pressure system is so strong we can get meager amounts of showers and storms in a pattern that used to be plentiful. That's not all. The high pressure now often takes up residence around the Four Corners region. In fact, meteorologists now commonly refer to this as the Four Corners High. What does it do? Depending on how it sets up, it can bring a reverse monsoon pattern, where storms come from the north and generally drop to the south. This is now becoming a more dominant pattern, and with it, some problems. In a reverse monsoon pattern, storms form around the mountains and start dropping south. In times of rich atmospheric moisture, these storms tend to drop a lot of rain in a localized area, then fall apart. The winds from these collapsing storms can create new strong storms further to the south. Sometimes this results in hit and miss downpours. In other instances, like when cells start merging together, it can create severe winds and flooding rains. As we have pointed out, this changing monsoon pattern often brings some very dangerous storms dropping in from the north during a reverse monsoon pattern. Albuquerque, July 2021. Torrential rain rolled over the Sandias into the foothills, dropping more than an inch of rain in just 15 minutes. Arroyos raging with torrents of water, with 3 people dying in these floodwaters. Santa Fe, July 2018. Colliding winds from collapsing storms to the north created a new storm right over the heart of Santa Fe, causing historic floods. In about an hour, some spots picked up more than 3.5 inches of rain. This type of event characterized as a 1,000-year type of flood. Roads turned into rivers, several cars were washed away, and many homes and properties suffered damage. Albuquerque, July 2013, another powerful storm approaching from the north. 2 huge storm cells combined and produced a massive wet microburst of wind and heavy rain. And the storm rolled south over the city. Sheets of rain flooded roads. Parts of I-25 shut down because of power lines falling on the interstate. Several roads closed due to falling trees and high water. A 90-mile-per-hour wind gust recorded at the Sunport, the highest reading ever. And fresh memories are still with us from July of last year in Belen. 3 inches of rain in about 2 hours. 3 major canals breached. Floodwaters poured throughout the city. The town has about 3,000 structures and 1,200 were damaged. Just another example of how a reverse monsoon pattern can be so destructive.
It all starts with moisture moving in. Sometimes it flows in from south to north, but it can also sweep through the gaps in the mountains from east to west. As that's happening, our mountains like the Sandias begin absorbing the warmth of the summer sun. The mountain rocks are warming faster and faster, heating up the air around them. Then that hotter air starts to rise upwards, taking the moisture that was already in place with it. The rising moisture eventually reaches cooler air higher up in the sky. That cooler air causes the moisture to condense and form clouds. The clouds billow bigger and bigger as more heat and moisture feed into them. Eventually, the clouds can't hold the moisture and it starts to fall to the ground as rain. The rain shower intensifies as more and more of that heat and moisture feed into it. At the same time, electrical charges building up in the clouds give way to lightning strikes, turning that rain shower into a full-fledged monsoon storm.
Those storms do carry some risks. Thunderstorms can bring too much water in a short amount of time. The parched desert ground doesn't absorb water very quickly, and all that rain has to go somewhere. It rushes downhill and fills channels called arroyos. Arroyos can be natural, like the gulches, and usually dry stream beds found in the desert and the foothills. Hikers need to be aware of the forecast and be alert to changing weather conditions. A thunderstorm miles away could send rushing water through these low-lying areas. The arroyo system in Albuquerque was created to carry water away from the mountains and into the Rio Grande. These channels may be dry 99% of the time, but they are not safe to walk or play in. Even if it's not raining where you are, water from a distant thunderstorm can fill an arroyo in just a few short minutes. Recent lackluster monsoon seasons have been called nonsoons by meteorologists here in the Southwest, but spotsoon may be a more fitting name. With the spotty nature of thunderstorms, some select locations may get above average rain or even see flash flooding. But if much of the surrounding area is dry, we may not see much or any improvement in the drought. The average monsoon rainfall for Albuquerque is just under 4.5 inches. Based on where we stand now, the metro area would need around 9 inches of widespread rain to end the drought by the end of the monsoon season. The northeast part of the state would need more than 15 inches.
The deeper we move into monsoon season, the more we have to be aware of the danger from lightning storms. I found one of the best places to study this is right here in New Mexico. Nestled on a mountaintop west of the town of Socorro is a laboratory unlike any other in the world. Built in the early 60s at an elevation of 10,783 feet, the Langmuir Laboratory for Atmospheric Research is a perfect location to study one of Earth's most complex wonders. One of the best ways to research lightning is to help create it. From this mountaintop, when conditions are just right, scientists will actually take these rockets and fire them into storm clouds in hopes of initiating a response.
I don't even know where to point the thing. All right!
Wait for it. Did you get it?
Yep. Oh, nice. If we trigger the lightning, and we know exactly where and when it's going to be, so we can get really high quality data. You also directly measure the lightning current, which you can then combine with other measurements to learn more about how lightning works.
The lab is operated by New Mexico Tech. Scientists are using special equipment to see inside the clouds. This animation, produced with the help of Los Alamos National Laboratory, is color-coded to give a clear illustration on what goes on inside a lightning storm.
The colors just tell you what order things happened in. So the newest stuff is colored red. And the white that you see on the screen, we leave that there to show where the lightning's already been. Yeah! Whoa!
Research like this will eventually result in even better lightning warning and protection, and perhaps someday answer a burning question.
How does the lightning decide where to strike? Pretty basic, pretty complicated.
When it comes to lightning research, there is still much more to discover.
One of the largest threats after a fire is flash flooding. Even modest rainfall in the burn areas raises the risk of floods. And in New Mexico, the monsoon season with heavy rains follows our traditional fire season. And that means rains we are waiting on to help with the state's historic drought may not be as beneficial. And for communities relying on the aquifer for drinking water, flash flooding won't help.
That rains doesn't go into the aquifer but runs into the river, and then the aquifer it would not have as much water.
Early damage reports show 50% of the burned areas in the northern New Mexico fires left behind moderate to severe land damage, and that will impact how the land absorbs rainfall. If you live downstream from a burn area, now is the time to check your flood insurance coverage, and once the rains come, keep an eye out for mudslides.
Still to come, protecting your property from New Mexico's weather extremes, the things you could do now to defend your home.
McBride Fire ignited on April 12th, it quickly burned more than 200 homes in Ruidoso. More than 2 months later, the road to rebuilding is just beginning.
You get some?
With each sift,
every time you find something, it's just that little bit of hope to keep going.
charred bits of memories found.
Yeah, no, it's not a death, but it almost feels like a death.
For Billy and Karen Roach, their home on Gavilan Canyon Road was their dream.
Just an oasis.
Their oasis taken by the McBride Fire.
This is what's left of our home. Fire took out every single thing.
Burning years of hard work.
We lost everything that we've worked our entire lives for.
Of everything they lost, all Billy wanted to find was one thing.
All I care about is my wedding ring.
His sister coming to help dig through the rubble. She prayed, and moments later, she saw angel wings in the ashes.
As she picked up that first angel wing, my ring was underneath it. My wedding ring was found.
Their daughter also finding their marriage certificate.
We're going into the third month, and we don't even really have anything happening. But there's all that paperwork and all the details and the plans, the architects, just stuff like that just takes time.
They say many of their neighbors who lost their homes don't want to rebuild on burn scars.
Why are you guys choosing to go through that process of rebuilding?
Well, because this house, this spot kind of represents what we came here for, you know, why we left Portales. And we know it'll come back and it'll be beautiful.
As they keep sifting through,
we've really found some cool stuff, you know, that we didn't really think mattered, but it does now.
The family hopes to rebuild in 6 months, but with more than 200 homes destroyed, worker shortages, and pandemic-related delays, it may take a year or longer.
Even before the flames are fully out, recovery teams move into Forest Service lands to start repairing the damage left behind by the flames and the fire crews brought in to fight them. The Burn Area Emergency Response Team, known as Bayer, evaluate the land to find out how badly existing root systems have been burned and replant grasses. They also test the soil to see how well it will absorb water. That test helps them understand the risk for flash flooding and mudslides.
We're looking at the leaves and the twigs on the ground. Have they been removed? Has the organic matter that is in the surface been consumed? Has the roots from the plants, have they been burnt up or scorched?
Teams have been brought in for the McBride, Cerro Pelado, and Hermit's Peak fires.
There are things homeowners can do to protect their property from those flames. Officials say to provide space between trees and your property, 100 to 200 feet from your home. Officials recommend clearing any branches or leaves and use concrete or gravel within 5 feet around your home.
In most fire conditions, just creating that area, that perimeter, is huge in the possibility of saving your home and saving your property.
Fire officials also recommend cleaning your gutters, roofs, and even vents, as they can fuel a fire if it reaches your home. You can find more tips by visiting the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department website. New Mexicans are getting through one of the worst fire seasons on record.
But the risks don't stop when the fires are out, as the monsoon season promises risks of its own.
The KOAT weather team will be here for you, tracking the systems and monitoring the changing landscape as we forecast the future of New Mexico.